Good morning, good afternoon, good day, good evening, good something to whatever good is good and is good and good on Strong Inspirations. Thank you, my friends. I'm happy you back at me once again. I'm very happy you back at me once again. I'm happier than happy because I know that you can feel what's going on here. What's going on is I find these people across the globe to share a Black history story with you, my friends. And I just come up with a few questions, but I let them do the talking. You know who I am. I'm Anthony Brogdon, just an ordinary guy trying to do something extraordinary. And it's happening. I couldn't sleep well last night, so I posted a video. And then I was thinking about my guest today. I'm so excited. He has decided to come on the channel. Let me tell you something, my friend. He put on a shirt and tie for us. He looked good. He got a good backdrop. He got the badge on. He's ready to tell you these stories that he's got coming out of his town. That's how it goes. And so, my friends, let me tell you a few things. Before I have him come on the channel, I got something to share with you. I got an interview with a lady out of Australia. It's gone global. I've already had a couple overseas. I had two in Europe, one in Jamaica, and now I got one coming out of Australia. I got, how about this one? I've been thinking of what I could do to keep this going and enlarge the process. How about that? I'm doing a festival in Quindaro, Kansas. Little old me, I want 1,000 people to show up. It's Memorial Day weekend 2022. And Quindaro is a town just on the other side of the Missouri River. Quindaro was a free state because it was in Kansas and Missouri wasn't. The enslaved people, I don't know how many, we're gonna talk about that, walked across the water when it froze and end up in Quindaro. I interviewed a guy on the channel, his great-great-grandfather is one of them that did that. And when he got there, my man is so bad that he opened up a business and got a little money. We're gonna have a Friday night, we're gonna have a party in a barn, wear your dusty blue jeans. We're gonna drink some moonshine and some sweet tea and all that other stuff at the party. Saturday, we're gonna have a tour to show you all of Quindaro and what happened, and maybe we can even go to Missouri. I gotta figure it out. And then we're gonna have a picnic with local bands and maybe some big name folk, some speakers, a health fair. We're putting it together now, man. I'm telling you, this thing is growing. And that's happening. You know what I want you to do? I want you to hit the subscribe button. It's free. I don't ask no information, and my numbers is up. And how about this? I think this thing is about to hit. I want 5,000 of them before the end of the year. I got 4 months, 3 months, something like that. I want 5,000 people to hit that button because you're watching me. I know you're gonna like this video. You're gonna appreciate what this man has got to share with us. So like it, this video, subscribe, like, hit the notifications bell, and tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. The other thing I want you to do, and this is on my personal tip, because I'm really serious about this history. You know, I produced this movie. It's called Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America. 75 minutes, it's extremely powerful. How about this? It starts with a guy who's 101 years old. He starts and ends this movie. 101 years old when we interviewed him. I got about 8 people in there in their high 90s sharing this information about the rise of Black business in America. And then I like it, and I got such a good response, I wrote the book on it. Black Business Book. Everybody get your copy. It's over 200 facts. Amazing facts, stuff that you didn't know. And let me tell you what happened was, I stumbled across some of this information and said, man, I'd never heard that before. Maybe I was asleep in that class. I don't know what happened, but I never heard it. They didn't teach it to me. That's when I did the movie. And then I kept going and I wrote this book. I want you to get a copy of my book, my friends. And then I'm gonna autograph it for you. Put it in a glass case. Read it. Share it with some people. I got a lady, she tells me she carries this book wherever she goes because it's small enough to put it in her purse. And then when somebody, she want to share a thought, she says, hey, look at the book. And I numbered the facts. So you can go to fact number 87, 99, 109, 209, not 209, 204. And you can share it that way. This book is going viral. Watch, it's going to be something special because somebody said it's the most comprehensive, easy to read Black history book ever. I didn't say it. Somebody told me that, and I just use it as my tagline. Lastly, you know I use that word strong a lot, right? Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. That's my introduction to my guest on the channel. He's a strong man. That's what I heard. That's the word on the street. Come on, gentlemen, introduce yourself and let's get it on. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Brogdon, and thank you, everybody. Good morning, and I really appreciate you inviting me to speak with you today. My name is Steve Tuttle, and I work at the South Carolina Department of Archives and History, and we're located in Columbia, South Carolina.
All right.
What we do here is collect the permanently valuable.
Hold on. I interrupt people every now and then. I don't mean no disrespect before you go to that. I got to get on you for a second, Mr.
Okay.
Tuttle. Where you from?
I was born in Lenore, North Carolina.
Which is where?
It's in the western part of the state, near Boone and Blowing Rock in the mountains there.
Appalachian? Is that
yes,
some Appalachian territory?
Yes, sir. Definitely.
And was there a Black history story in your town?
There probably was. I didn't learn a lot about that when I was growing up. And so that's one of the reasons I think I got interested in that topic when I started working here at the archives, to learn more about what was going on in terms of Black history and particularly Black genealogy. That's one of the things I'm interested in. Is
that right? Okay, well, I mean, I don't mean no disrespect. How you want to like to do that? I mean, what do your friends think of you, you know, saying, hey, this is what you decided as a career choice?
Yeah, they understand. I was a history major in college, and I went to got my a master's degree at the University of South Carolina in library and information science, and I took history courses along the way. And I've always liked information and trying to track it down, and sort of, it's like a puzzle. You have to track down the information and try to put it together to make a story. And so that really interests me.
And was there a moment in your life that really kind of triggered this though? There's something you saw or something, do you think?
I think maybe when I was growing up in Lenore, North Carolina, and when I started to school, I was either the second or the third class after integration. And some of my mother's side of the family were in Virginia, and they hadn't integrated the schools yet. And so I would hear my parents and their siblings talk about this. And so I knew something had gone on prior to when I was born that led to all of this. And so that sort of piqued my interest in learning about history and how things that happened long ago still have an effect on us today.
Okay, I got one more question. Again, I hope you don't mind I ask you this, but it's on my heart to ask you. Okay, let's say you in school and you 2 years off of being in segregated school, and then all of a sudden these Black kids come. Are you the kid to say don't pick on them?
Well,
you know what I mean by that? Because I know they picked on them. Everybody I tell you said when I got there, they picked on me. I had to fight every day. Were you the one that said, hey, stop that? Or how did you, may I ask?
Yes, sir. I tried to do that. I tried to make friends with everybody in the class. And I certainly believe it's important that we all try to get along. So,
did you get ostracized for that?
No, sir, I don't think so. I think, you know, when we started out, it was just, we were used to having integrated class. And so it wasn't something that was a big change for us, I guess. I guess in my first grade, we had, I think, a class of about 25, and we had, I think, 5 African-American students in there.
But you, I know you had to see it though. You had to hear them say things.
Oh, sure, yes, sir. We did, and so hopefully we've made some progress since then.
Oh, no question. I think we've made a lot of progress.
Yeah, I started the school in 1965, so It's been a while.
And then growing up in a small town like that, it really wasn't many African Americans, were there?
Probably in the county where I live, maybe the population was about 20% African American.
Okay, one more question, then we go on to what you're going to talk about. You got me thinking. I hope you don't mind. Did they live on the other side of town?
There were certain communities in town where they lived. Yes, sir.
Could they integrate and come, or they only stayed on their side of town until it was time to go to school?
Well, both. They did both. Yes, sir.
Oh, so it was a little more liberal in your town?
A little bit more. Yes, sir.
Were there plantations before that in your town?
Well, yes, sir, there were. There was a big one called Fort Defiance. It was a plantation that was established around the Revolutionary War. And so that was probably the biggest one in that county.
Did they have historical markers for it? Is it still around? What happened to it?
Yes, sir, they've got historical markers. It's sort of like a house museum today that you can go visit.
Is this do you wish it hadn't happened? Do people wish that hadn't happened, or is it's a part of history that we got to? I mean, what's all this critical race theory talk that we have now? What's your take on it, man?
Yeah, I'm not sure I know enough about that, really, to tell you the truth. Since I'm not a teacher in a classroom setting, I do a lot of one-on-one teaching with researchers. But yeah, it's a sad fact that it was enslaved people were a part of our history. Yeah. And I think it's important to learn that and to try to learn from our mistakes and try to do better.
And so that's what you do now at where you work for the government. Okay, hold on. Before I ask that question, what's the government's take? Is your government, you work for the state? Are they trying to preserve this? They trying to learn more? What do you all, what's the aim?
Sure, yes, sir, we do. Here at our agency at the Department of Archives and History, we collect the permanently valuable public records for South Carolina. And by that, I mean colonial records and state government records and county government records and municipal government records for South Carolina. And we have records going back as far as 1671. And some of the more recent records we've got in are up into the 2000s. So we have a span of about 325 years worth of records. Our agency also has the state's Historic Preservation Office, where they try to preserve historic sites and buildings around the state and historical markers. They do that program. And so we have a very active history program trying to document and preserve all of South Carolina's history.
Yeah, I see. Now, South Carolina is, where does the Low Country begin? I've heard Low Country. Where is that?
Yeah, that's along the coast. Originally, that would have been the area around Charleston and Beaufort and Georgetown.
Okay, it's usually that Low Country.
About 50 miles inland from the coast of South Carolina.
And that's maybe more Gullah Geechee toward.
Yes, sir, definitely. Yes, sir. That was a heavily Black majority population in South Carolina.
In the Low Country, is it just South Carolina? Oh, you said, is it the other states too? You say Georgia is a part of that, maybe?
It is, but in terms of what we do here at the Archives Department, it's just for South Carolina.
So what do y'all do every day? You always ask people to send us your archives and then you digitize them? What's an everyday type scenario?
Yes, sir. We have different units that do different things. And I work a lot down in the research room where people come in to do research with us. And people come to visit us in person. And they also either write us or call us or email us for information. And we deal with about, I guess, pretty close to 7,500 people a year. We're trying to help them. That keeps
you busy.
Yes, sir. We do that. And then we also have records management staff that goes out and works with the state agencies and the county offices to identify records that are worth being kept permanently. And they're the ones that eventually come to us here at the Archives Department. And then we do have a staff, once the records get here, they work with them to prepare people so people can research. And also we do have a digitization program where we're digitizing records and putting them up on our website. And we also nowadays get a lot of records that come in electronic format. They were created, in a digital format, so they're transferred to us in a digital format, and we put them up in that format on our website.
I got you.
Sir.
So when you say a record, give me an example. A record could be a bill of sale of an African-American person?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We do have, prior to the Civil War, prior to 1865, we do have lots of bills of sale where enslaved people were bought and sold. That's one of the sources that we've got in the kinds of records that we've got here, government records. Once you get back prior to emancipation, prior to 1865, it gets important to connect the enslaved person with the slave owner, because that's the way they're going to show up in our government records, is under the name of the slave owner. And so bills of sale are one of the sources that we've got for that. Another source would be when the slave owner would die. Sometimes in his will or his inventory, they'll list the names of the enslaved people. Sometimes there are court cases where enslaved people are mentioned. Equity court cases, those often involve property, real property, land and personal property, enslaved people, and how they got divided amongst family members. We also have magistrate and freeholders court records. Those are criminal court records where if you were an enslaved person or a free person of color and you were accused of a crime, that was the court that heard the case. So we have various kinds of records that people can search to find out information about their ancestors.
Now, when we say these records, you're talking about records that's almost 200 years old. 300 years old.
Yes,
is it a dingy piece of paper, or it's in a book, or I mean, it comes all kind of forms, but yeah.
It does, and some of them are recorded in volumes and in books. Some of them are loose papers, and actually paper that was created prior to about 1860 is really in much better shape in some cases than some of the more recent records that we've got. Once you get after the Civil War and more people learn how to read and write, they started mass producing more paper.
Right.
And it's cheaper and it deteriorates quicker. So we have some of our records back from the 1600s are in better shape than, say, some of the records that we've got from the 1940s.
Is that right?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Now, when you see a record, they had to keep records in some respects because they had to pay a tax on the property they had. Yes, and including the enslaved people.
They did. Prior to the Civil War, prior to 1865, people paid tax on land and slaves. And so most of our tax records will say, how many acres the person owned and how much tax they paid and how many enslaved people they own and how much tax they paid.
So you had to, I mean, it cost a slave owner some money to have slaves.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What were those costs? Would you say?
It depends at different points in time. I'm not a real expert on that, but if it was, say, an enslaved person who had a skill like a brick maker or bricklayer or cooper, about a barrel maker, or somebody who could operate a cotton gin, then they would probably be worth maybe several $1,000s.
Oh, that's a lot of money during that time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so I mentioned earlier, those inventories, when the slave owner would die, they would list the names of the enslaved people. They would also have the value that was assigned to them. And so you could sort of see that listed there too.
Now that's an arbitrary number. That's just what I think is worth.
Right. Yes, sir. That's when when the slave owner died, if he had a will, it named an executor, and the executor would make those lists of the real and personal property and assign values to them. Or if the slave owner died without a will, the court would appoint an administrator, and the administrator would do that. And they had to file these papers, either the executor or the administrator, with the court to show that they were properly disposing of that person's property.
Was there some sliding rule as to how much a person might be worth, saying at such and such age bracket, such and such height, such and such, I don't know, whatever? Or again, it was just so arbitrary?
Yeah, it's probably more arbitrary. I mean, certainly in a bill of sale, you would see how much they paid for a particular person. So I'm not sure how they would do the value when they were trying to probate the estate. That's a good question.
Okay, how about this one? Was there a sales tax?
Not that I know of. Prior to the Civil War, like I said earlier, to my knowledge, that they just pay tax on land and slaves, and so I don't know that there was a sales tax. I've never come across that.
Do you come into income tax records?
The federal income tax, I think, starts in the early part of the 20th century.
Okay.
And so we really don't, we have a few federal records here, like federal census records for South Carolina. But mostly we would have state tax records.
Yeah, but okay, for a state tax, a person had to pay a state income tax even that far back?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
I don't know. I know we have, after the Civil War, we have auditors and treasurers tax duplicate books. And that's where people were paying the tax on the land that they own.
So, okay, now I have family that started in Sumter, South Carolina.
Yes, sir.
And I would like to do some genealogy. I could come to you all and what would be my first start if I came to you?
Sure. Yes, sir. If you're just at the very beginning of your research, usually the first place we have you start are with the federal census records. And the most recent one of those that's been released is 1940. The federal census, they release them every 72 years.
Right.
So in fact, April 1st of next year, 2022, they're going to release the 1950 census. And it's always a big deal when a new census opens up.
Okay.
But, right now, 1940. And so when you come in, we ask people at least have names of family members as far back as 1940. For instance, my father was born in 1931. My mother was born in 1934. So the first census they'd show up on is 1940. And at that point, my father, he would be 8 or 9 years old, depending on what part of the year he was born. And so if I could find him on that 1940 census, he would hopefully be listed with his parents, his mother, his father, any brothers and sisters who were living there.
Okay.
And so say I found my father on there and say his father was listed as 42 years old. So that means he was born about 1898.
Okay.
First census he would show up on is the 1900 census, because the census is taken every 10 years since 1790.
I got you. I got you there.
Find my grandfather on that 1900 census, he would be about 2. So hopefully he'd be there with his parents. Now I found another generation.
I got you.
Work your way back on the census records. And when you're doing family history research, you're always looking for records like the census where different generations are mentioned together. So usually census is good to start. Another good place to start is with death certificates. Because typically on a death certificate, they'll list the names of the parents on there. Name of the mother, name of the father.
I got you.
Times the date of birth, date of death, place of burial, some really good information like that. So one of the really neat things nowadays is lots of these census records and lots of the death certificates are up in a digital format on some,
right.
on some websites like Ancestry.com,
right,
which is a subscription service, but we have a subscription so people can come to the archives and use it for free. And nowadays, most public libraries have a subscription, so people can probably go to their local public library and get access to it. And then there's another search called another site called FamilySearch.org. Okay. That's a free site, and they do have census records up there for South Carolina and death certificates. And so those are 2 good places to start.
And then from there, what would be another angle? Okay, I got their names and so on and so forth. Sure. I could come to you and maybe find what other kind of records that would help me?
Yes, sir. Once you've done the census and the death certificates, then you're ready to do some deeper digging. And so one of the great things that we've got here is we have a really good collection of county records for South Carolina. And the counties, as we think of them today, were formed in 1785. Prior to that, all the records for the whole state were recorded in Charleston. But once you get past the Revolutionary War in 1785, the counties were set up, including Sumter County, where your family is from.
Right.
Good things that we've got in terms of county records that mention family members. We have the land records, the deeds, where people are buying and selling property.
Okay.
And for most counties, we have them from about 1785 up into the early part of the 20th century. It varies from county to county.
I got you.
And, we have indexes. You can look them up by the name of the buyer or the seller. And oftentimes in those deeds, they'll mention family members. You know, wife and children. They'll be deeding property to one of their children, or the wife is signing the deed, that kind of thing. And then we also have those probate records that I mentioned earlier.
Right.
There's the state papers that have the wills and the inventories, and people tend to mention family members in their will or in their probate papers.
I got you.
And then we also have some of those court records, like we mentioned earlier, those equity court records that
Right.
often are court cases about dividing up property amongst family members.
Right.
We also have lots of civil court and criminal court records.
I got you.
Those are all good sources that we got. We also
I got you. So, okay, how about this one? It just came to mind. Okay, the enslaved usually took the last name of the enslaver.
They often did, yes, sir.
They often did. Okay, I buy somebody. Do I change his last name, or do I keep it the same? Or usually, how did that work? That's one question.
Yeah, I have seen some bills of sale, very few, that do mention what the person's previous first name was. And then once they were purchased, they were given a different first name. I've seen a couple of bills of sales like that. In terms of a last name, I think the best source that we've got that helps us with that is right after the Civil War ended in 1865, we've got some tax records here from 1865, 1866, and 1867. And those tax records are one of the first places in the records that we've got in the government records where formerly enslaved people show up by name. And you'll often see them listed on those tax records living near the previous slave owner.
Okay.
One example that we've got, it's the P family in Fairfield County, P-E-A-Y. And I've seen the P family listed where the white P person by that last name is listed owning 15,000 acres of land. And then underneath him, there are other people by that same last name listed, like John P. And out near his name, there's initials PC, and that stands for person of color.
Okay.
When you see somebody, a white person who owned that much land, and then listed underneath them are people by the same last name that listed as PC, persons of color, that's pretty good circumstantial evidence that they were enslaved people, prior to when the war was over,
okay,
prior to emancipation. So that's one way we've got of sort of connecting the names of people right after the war and right after emancipation.
Now, when the people when they named them what have you, was there a document that they had to fill out to say that's his name, or just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, not to my knowledge, no, not a government record. South Carolina did not require people to record birth or death certificates, regardless of race, until 1915. So prior to that, there are no state issued birth records. There may be, sometimes the slave owner would have plantation records, private business records, where they would have information about the enslaved people in it. And they may list, they often do list enslaved people by name, but in terms of the government records like we've got, there was no place that you had to go to record anyone's name, whether they were free or enslaved.
On a plantation that had over, let's say, 200 slaves, that's a big record book that they have to keep.
Yes, sir.
To list all the names of the people that they have.
Right. You're right.
Do you suspect who might have done that? Did they? Is that the overseer's job? Is that usually their job, or do they have? Was there how about this? Was there somebody called the bookkeeper of the slaves or something like that?
Well, again, it would be up to the slave owner as to how he wanted to keep his records, whether he wanted to do it himself or he wanted the overseer to do it. So I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I got you.
We've mentioned a couple of times those inventories where they list the names of enslaved people. We do have an inventory here for Arthur Middleton. He was a very wealthy rice planter down in the Low Country, the Charleston area.
Okay.
And when he died, in his inventory, they list all of his enslaved people, and it's more than 500 that are listed. Ooh. And they're listed by name and age, and also in family groups. That's sort of rare to find one like that. So
yeah,
you can see it can be a long list. Like
I can't imagine. And somebody has to do the writing on that, because a lot of times the actual owner was not present on the site, from what I gather.
That happens a lot, particularly in South Carolina. I think on some of the larger plantations in the Low Country, like we were talking about earlier. particularly some of the rice plantations.
Yeah, because they were politicians, and there were investors up from Philadelphia and so on and so forth being a part of this.
Right. And
Yeah.
particularly in the summertime, the heat of the summer and the mosquitoes and the disease of malaria, the slave owners would leave and go up to the upcountry where it was cooler, during those summer months.
Yeah.
So, oftentimes they weren't living there always on the plantation.
Yeah, sure. What about records such as newspapers and that type of thing? Do you keep those, or that's?
We really don't. We sort of restrict ours to government records, but there's a couple of places here in South Carolina that do. One is called the South Caroliniana Library at the University of South Carolina.
Okay.
They've got the state's best collection of newspapers there. And the other one is the South Carolina Historical Society in Charleston. They've got a big newspaper collection.
Okay.
And both of those institutions now are participating in a project that the Library of Congress is doing. It's called Chronicling America.
Okay.
They're digitizing newspapers for the whole country, including South Carolina. And they're putting them up on a website. It's called Chronicling America. That's a free site. And you can go in and you can tell it you want to search just South Carolina newspapers. You can put a name in or a topic, and it will bring the image of the newspaper up with that name highlighted, and you can click on it and read through the newspaper article and see what it says.
When you do, people can't take. They can make a copy of these records. I know you can't take them out.
That's correct. Yes, sir. You can make a copy. We can help you make a hard copy, a paper copy, or we have machines that you can make a digital copy. Or nowadays, most people come in either with a camera or their phone, and they just take pictures of it. We allow people to do that.
Okay.
They not use a flash mechanism, and that's the easiest and quickest and cheapest way to make a copy because there's no charge for that.
Yeah, right. Sure.
You can take the image with you when you leave, and so more and more people do that.
As we kind of come to a close, so you have a big, your building, is it one big library room where there's a lot of desks and people are sitting at this desk, or there's various rooms? What's the semantics for that?
Yes, sir. Exactly like you said, we have a big research room, and when people come in to do research, we always have two staff members at the desk to help you get started. And usually when I'm working there, when people come in, I ask, what kind of information are you looking for?
Right.
We'll suggest records that we've got, like we've been talking about, that can help you find that. And we have the records that we've been talking about. We have a book collection, published books. We also have a big microfilm collection. A lot of these records are on microfilm. And so we help people, use the indexes and finding aids and the various viewing machines and copy machines that we've got. And we are open for research 8:30 to 5, Tuesday through Saturdays.
Okay.
So we're closed on Sundays and Mondays. And on Saturdays, we do have a smaller staff working. So on that day, we close down from noon to 1 for lunch.
I got you. Now, when you say the records, you can actually take out of the shelf. What does the record look like? It's in a folder. It's in the wall, on the shelf, and some records you can take that actual record that's 300 years old and take it to your desk and look at it and take that photo. Is that how that goes?
Yes, sir. In some cases you can. A lot of records that we have that are very old and very valuable and very fragile, we microfilm them or digitize them and have people use it that way.
I got you.
We estimate that we've got about 35 million documents here, so we don't have everything digitized.
I got you.
Microfilm. So in many cases, you'd come in and you'd get the actual record book that you can look at the original copy.
Ooh, that's got to be deep.
Of it. And yes, sir. It's very, very impressive, some of the documents that we've got.
I apologize again. I don't know, but I got to ask this. Have you ever had anybody come and try to tear a record up?
Well, we try to prevent that. We have cameras there in the room to watch people, and when people come in, they register with us, and they give us their name and address and an ID number, and we try to everything that we've got here is considered to be permanently valuable. So we want
that's what I'm thinking.
We want people to be able to come in 300 years from now and see the same things that you could see when you come in. So we do our very best to prevent that from happening.
One more. I got another question came to mind. You probably got some records that are very valuable too, that if somebody was to get their hand on, it might go high in the auction something. Is that
That's
true? The
Yes,
case?
sir. Yeah, we have things like South Carolina has had 7 state constitutions, and we have the original copy of all 7. We've got South Carolina's copy of the Bill of Rights.
Which might be worth how much?
Oh, well, that's I couldn't even put a price on that. That's just we have the original copy of the Ordinance of Secession where South Carolina seceded from the Union.
You got the original copy?
Yes, sir. We have things like the 1949 Briggs petition. That was the South Carolina portion of that 1954 Supreme Court case that desegregated the schools, Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas. There were several states involved in that, including South Carolina. And so the original documents for that South Carolina case here. So that's one of the priceless things we've got for the 20th century here. So
I got a funny one as we kind of come to a close. If you were on, I don't know, let's say Jeopardy, and the question was South Carolina history, they couldn't stump you. You know it all for the most part, wouldn't you say?
Well,
Not all, but I mean, you know, yeah, you can win that category.
Well, I do know, I've been working here 37 years, and so I do know a lot about the records that we've got here.
Right, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Every time somebody comes in, they're doing something different. So you use different records every day. You learn something new every day. That's one of the good parts about the job here. Okay.
One more question. What's a good day for you there? If like, for example, if you help somebody, that's a great day. Is that right? Or if you've learned something new, that's a great day. What would you say?
Exactly that. If you help, when people come in and you help them find something they've been looking for a long time, or something they don't think they're going to be able to find, but they do, that's a great day. I get excited about that. I also get excited, like I said earlier, about learning something new every day.
Yeah.
That makes it interesting. And if you like history, this is a great place to work.
And do you have people come in there and they find something and they end up hollering and screaming and crying? That you have some of those occasions?
We have every once in a while. That does happen. Yes, sir. They're so happy that they found something. So,
or crying to learn what they found, maybe.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So
my God. Is there a question that I have not asked you? Give us the website and how people can kind of get started, that kind of thing, maybe?
Sure. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If you go into Google or whatever search engine you want and just put in South Carolina Department of Archives and History, we're going to come right up.
Okay.
And across the top of the page, there's going to be some choices, and one's going to say Research and Genealogy.
Okay.
Put your cursor over there, a box is going to drop down, and it's going to list some of these sources that we've been talking about.
Okay.
One of the new sources that we've got up that I want to mention before we get finished is, I don't know if this is going to show up, but this is a little booklet that we've done on doing sources that we've got for doing African American genealogical research.
Yes.
And this originally came out in 1996, and up on our website a few months ago, we put a new edition of this up.
Okay.
Because a lot has been, particularly gone up on the internet since 1996. And so if you're interested in doing African American genealogical research, I would advise you to go to our website and click on that little pamphlet that we've got. And that's going to talk about some of the sources that we mentioned today, and examples of some of them, like examples of what a census record looks like. And so, and we certainly would love people to come in and do research with us.
Okay. One more question came to mind. Is there an association of state organizations like yours?
There is, yes, sir. There's something called a SARC, which is the Southeastern Archives and Records Conference, where state archives from the Southeast, we get together for conferences.
I got you.
On a national level, there's the Society of American Archivists, where archivists from all over the country get together and learn from each other.
I got you. Have you all won the top prize? Have you all won that top award for whatever it might be called?
We actually did back in 1974. The Society of American Archivists gives out an award each year, sort of like the Archives of the Year. And so our agency, we won that back in 1974.
You're going to win it again, watch.
We hope so someday, yes, sir.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so very much for coming on the channel. This is tremendous. I got to start looking into mine because every slave that was on one plantation has got the same name. That doesn't make them family though.
Right.
And we got my last name is Brogdon. There's some Brogdons that I got to figure out how we connected, because we might not be. It's just the same last name.
Ooh, yes, sir. Well,
Yeah, that's a good question.
yes, sir.
Everybody, this is what I do with Strong Inspirations. I find people who wear shirt and ties and badges and whatnot and work for the government, man. I got them National Park Service Rangers on the channel, and they got the hats and the uniforms. And I got people like this gentleman right here, who's an expert. He's an expert at understanding archives and history. You've been doing it a long time. I thank you so very much for coming on the channel. Everybody hit that subscribe button, hit the like button on this video. Now you know how to get started if you want to. And I'm sure it's the same kind of concept in every state. Hit the notifications bell when the videos come out. Tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. And to you, my friend, I say with all sincerity, I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind, keep doing that, because you're good at it. You've been there that long, and you know. I mean, they all know you know what you do. And when you get down there, everybody look for him.
Yeah,
Everybody, thank you so very much for coming and watching on the channel. With that, I say bye-bye, we out.